Chapter 279, Causing an Uncontrollable Disaster 1. Mr. Ku, I've seen the fifth diagram clearly. It's the word Jiao. Zhu Tui reconfirmed when he saw Ku Qingshan's shocked expression. Ku Qingshan was overjoyed. Then, he cursed himself for being stupid. Zhu Tui had already said the word Jiao, yet he still asked the question. He even looked shocked. This was not appropriate. His performance as a teacher would make this student proud. He could not afford to be proud. Mr. Ku, is the word in the sixth diagram Gao? Ku Qingshan, who was reflecting on himself, almost fell to the ground when he heard Zhu Tui's words. Zhu Tui could clearly see the sixth diagram that had a size of 0.001 nanometers. Ku Qingshan wanted to confirm the time again. 2.5 days had just passed, right? Not 2.5 months. Back then, he was also the genius that his teacher had mentioned. It took him 3 days to finish the 3 diagrams and 10 days for 4 diagrams. However, it had taken him 3.5 months to finish the 6th diagram. But because of his previous reflection, Ku Qingshan forced himself to calm down and no longer showed that overly shocked expression. If a teacher was too surprised by a student's cultivation results, the student would become complacent. The 6th diagram is indeed Gao. What about the 7th diagram? Can you tell? Ku Qingshan forced himself to remain calm. The 7th diagram was absolutely impossible. To be able to see the 6th diagram in 2.5 days, he was definitely a monster among monsters. If he could see the 7th diagram clearly, he, Ku Qingshan, would be able to test the hardness of his shiny forehead. He wanted to see if his head was harder than a rock. Let's see if he can kill him. Back then, Ku Qingshan had used 3.5 months to cultivate the 6th diagram. However, it took him 7 years for him to see the contents of the 7th diagram. Zhu Tui could sense Ku Qingshan's surprise even though he was trying his best to remain calm. Mr. Ku, I'm guessing that the 7th diagram has the word D? Zhu Tui said softly. Ku Qingshan's eyes widened. Holy shit! Zhu Tui could also see the 7th diagram. It had only been 2.5 days, right? FCAC, even a demon could not describe this speed. His eyes widened for a moment before Ku Qingshan suddenly reacted. Guess? The first 6 words Yu Yu Zhu Jun Jiao Gao. Then the last word is either D or Xia. Zhu Tui wanted to deny it, but he changed the topic when he spoke. He felt that it was enough to see the genius value displayed by the first 6 diagrams in 2.5 days. He had to strengthen a level 2 genetic base point to see the 7th diagram clearly. Just like how Luo Shifeng had the time distortion ability that was the result of almost 30 years of persistent training. Zhu Tui only had this ability after he strengthened his main reaction type genetic base point. Similarly, Zhu Tui could clearly see the 7th diagram, because he had strengthened his microscopic perception's genetic base point to level 2. However, Ku Qingshan would have to spend at least 5 to 10 years of hard work on it. Forget it, let's not discourage them. It was enough to display the value of a genius. Ku Qingshan only felt relieved when he saw that Zhu Tui had guessed the 7th word. That was normal, if Zhu Tui could see the 7th diagram clearly. In 2.5 days, Ku Qingshan felt that he would have a cultivation barrier. Compared to someone like Zhu Tui, what was the point of his bitter cultivation? Fortunately, it was meaningful. If you can see the 6th diagram clearly, you can proceed to the next step of cultivation. However, you have to cultivate the 7th diagram often when you go back. The cultivation of the 7th diagram would further increase your microscopic perception ability. At that time, the benefits would not only make it easier for you to sense the original quantum frequencies. It will directly affect the power of the instantiation ability, Ku Qingshan said. I will persist in my cultivation. Zhu Tui smiled and nodded. He would take his time to practice the 7th diagram. He would think about it when the time was right to say that he had finished it. Come with me, I'll teach you the next step of your cultivation. Then, Ku Qingshan brought Zhu Tui to a very natural environment. It was a large hall that was more than 200 square meters. In the hall, the ground was a mixture of soil and rocks. It was covered in different-looking grass and moss. In some places, the grass was even calf-high. There was a whole piece of stone, rotten dead wood. As soon as he entered, an indescribable natural aura assaulted his senses. Ku Qingshan casually sat down on a rock. "Sit anywhere you want. Do whatever makes you comfortable." As he spoke, Ku Qingshan sat down casually. However, Zhu Tui was stunned the moment he sat down. Ku Qingshan's aura suddenly became blurry. He seemed to have merged into this natural space in an instant. The bald head that was originally very eye-catching outside no longer looked so glaring now. At a glance, he even had a feeling that he should do that. Why? Can you tell and feel it? It seemed that the intelligence of the School of Enlightened Mind was quite useful. I've brought a total of 10 students into this place in the past 3 years. You should be the first to discover something the moment you enter, Ku Qingshan said. Zhu Tui ignored Ku Qingshan's praise. Instead, he asked in confusion, "Is it because of nature?" That's right. Nature, primordial, primitive, and origin all have something in common. When we, the School of General Senses, have to sense the original quantum frequency of a certain substance or image, we are actually sensing nature, primitive, and origin.